Tragedy is nothing new to the family of the late country music legend Hank Williams. You could even say it's a family tradition. Hank Sr. passed away from a drug overdose at age 29. His son Hank Jr., aka Bocephus, followed in his father's footsteps and got caught up in drugs and alcohol. Then you have Shelton, who goes by Hank III. He's also had a lifelong battle with substance abuse. And last but not least, we have Coleman Williams, otherwise known as Hank Williams IV. Join Factsverse as we take a look at the tragic Hank Williams family legacy. Hank Williams Sr. Born Hiram Hank Williams on September 17, 1923, Hank Sr. is widely regarded as one of the most popular and influential American singer-songwriters of all time. He grew up in rural Mount Olive, Alabama, and came from very little means. His father worked as a logger before being hospitalized at a VA hospital when he was just 6 years old. Hank saw very little of his dad over the next decade as he was severely ill and didn't want visitors. Hank's mother, who had to take over the duties of running the family, ran boarding houses and eventually moved the family to Montgomery, Alabama. Hank Sr.'s childhood was largely shaped by his spinal condition, spina bifida, which made him different from the other children his age and led him to develop a sense of being separated from the world around him. He felt like an outcast, and that theme could clearly be heard in the lyrics of his later music. After discovering his love for music, listening to the radio, and hearing church choirs deliver their gospel melodies, Williams taught himself how to play folk and country music. He also received a helping hand from African-American street musician Rufus Payne, who taught him how to play the blues. Hank made his radio debut when he was just 13, and later entered talent shows with his band Hank Williams and his Drifting Cowboys. His mother supported his musical dreams and would often drive him around throughout southern Alabama to play shows. In the 40s, he was discovered by music executives in the recording studio capital of the world, Nashville. But as he continued finding success, he also became increasingly dependent on alcohol to relieve his crippling back pain. As a result of this, he was often regarded as being unreliable. In 1943, he met the love of his life, Audrey Mae Shepherd, who was a mother of a daughter and had just exited a tumultuous marriage. After she joined Hank Sr.'s band playing the bass, Audrey and Williams got married in 1944. They welcomed their son, Hank Williams Jr., into the world in 1949. In 1946, Williams signed with MGM, and a year later released his first hit single, Move It On Over. In 1948, he wowed the music world once more with a second Billboard chart-topping hit, Honky Tonkin'. But as he found more success, his behavior became increasingly erratic. He would show up to gigs drunk, but he managed to keep things together long enough to release a series of other hit singles, including Louisiana Hayride, Your Cheatin' Heart, and Honky Tonk Blues. In 1952, he and Shepherd divorced shortly after the Grand Ole Opry had fired him. Hank then proceeded to become increasingly reliant on painkillers and alcohol to ease his ails. His physical appearance diminished, his hair started falling out, and his weight ballooned. On New Year's Day, 1953, while riding in the back seat of his blue Cadillac, Hank Sr. passed away. It's generally agreed upon he likely died from a lethal combination of painkillers and alcohol, but instead of his death putting an end to his stardom, it arguably only added to his legendary status. Posthumously, Hank Sr.'s music went on to take a life of its own, immortalizing him as one of the most cherished and revered country stars of all time. Hank Williams Jr. Following in his father's footsteps, Hank Williams Jr. likewise became one of the most beloved stars of country music. But even though bearing the same name as his father clearly helped him find success, for the longest time he felt like he was simply riding on his dad's coattails. Escaping the shadow of his famous father was no easy task, but ultimately he found his own voice and paved his own unique path. Hank Jr. was born Randall Hank Williams, and on the insistence of his mother Audrey, he started performing when he was 8. His 1964 recording of his father's tune, Long Gone Lonesome Blues, climbed to number 5 on the country charts before he was even in high school. But by the time he was 18, Hank Jr. found himself desperately unhappy with life and fell into drug and alcohol abuse. After severing ties with his mother, Hank Jr. tried to kill himself in 1974. Fortunately, he survived this attempt and was able to rediscover his passion for music. After moving to Alabama, Hank Jr. began collaborating with Southern rock musicians like Charlie Daniels, Waylon Jennings, and members of the Marshall Tucker Band. Eventually, these led him to release his album Hank Williams Jr. and Friends, which is generally considered to be the record that saw Hank coming into his element and finding his voice. But tragedy struck just a year later when he was climbing Ajax Mountain in Montana. After losing his footing, Williams fell over 400 feet, smashing his face and crushing his skull as he tumbled. It took him 2 years and numerous surgeries for him to fully recover. And at first, it wasn't clear if he would ever be able to talk again, let alone sing. But he began the slow process of rebuilding his career. After rebranding himself primarily as a Southern rock musician, Hank Jr. went on to release dozens of albums. And throughout his career, he earned numerous awards and accolades for his contributions to the world of music while challenging the establishment with his unique blend of country, rock, and blues. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. And stick around to learn about Hank III and his son, Coleman. Hank III. While his granddaddy sang about cheating hearts and feeling lonesome, Shelton Hank Williams has spent his life battling very different demons, namely hard drugs and record execs. Hank III, as he goes by on stage, was born on December 12, 1972, and he spent much of his early career living a semi-nomadic lifestyle while playing drums in a punk band in the late 80s and early 90s. Williams later played bass in the heavy metal group Superjoint Ritual, led by former Pantera frontman Phil Anselmo. In 1996, he signed a contract with the Nashville label Curb Records, hoping to capitalize on his family name and uncanny resemblance to his grandfather. That year, he appeared on the critically panned record Three Hanks, Men with Broken Hearts, which pieced together recordings of the three generation of Hanks to make it seem as if they were singing alongside each other. Hank hated to have to do that album, but he had to do it anyway since he signed his name on that dotted line. He put out his first solo album, Rise and Outlaw, in 1999 and went on to release the album Lovesick, Broke, and Driftin' in 2002. As he continued to find more and more success as an unorthodox country musician who didn't mind dabbling in heavy metal and punk, Hank began to succumb to his party-hard lifestyle. He turned to hard drugs like crystal meth, crack, and painkillers to ease his troubled mind. But inevitably, this caused him a great deal of trouble in his personal life. And while he was actively spiraling, his relationship with Curb began to deteriorate. In 2006, he released the album Straight to Hell, which dealt heavily with his drug use and outlaw persona. 2 years later, he put out the album Damn Right, Rebel Proud, after temporarily patching things up with Curb. After a series of disputes, Williams decided to put together his own label, Hank III Records. He went on to release several critically applauded albums, including A Ghost to Ghost, Guttown, and Cattle Callin', the latter of which was credited to 3 Bar Ranch and consisted of recordings of cattle auctioneers overlaid with speed metal. In 2013, Hank III put out his most recent album, A Fiendish Threat, and has largely fallen off the map since then, leading fans to speculate he's been continuing to fight with addiction. While he's managed to stay out of the spotlight, it would seem likely his demons haven't magically relented, and it's well documented he has spent multiple stints in rehab. Hank Williams IV. In the mid-90s, Hank III learned he had fathered a son, Coleman Fincham. In 2021, it was confirmed that Coleman, who has since adopted the alias Hank Williams IV, or just 4 for short, would pursue a musical career of his own. His debut single, Son of Sin, was released April 20th, 2021. The 30-year-old, who has spent most of his life estranged from his father, has since released his debut EP. After learning he had a son, Hank III was hit with a paternity suit when Coleman was 5 years old. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you know Hank Williams Sr. was such a deeply troubled man? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.